אתם מציגים אותי קודם או משהו?
כן, כן. Hello, everybody. A week has passed since the single deadliest assault against Israel and the Jews at large in our history on a single day. As families are discovering their loved ones have died through social media sent by terrorists themselves, others learn that those they feared missing in Gaza have actually been identified as the dead. In the meantime, 140 families have been notified that their loved ones are being held hostage. At the same time, the army is preparing for the next phase of the war, gathering forces and warning citizens of northern Gaza to leave their homes in advance. The Jerusalem Press Club now turns to Major General in Reserves, Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Advisor, former head of the Research Department in the IDF's Military Intelligence Directorate, for his insight on these matters. Amidror, who also headed Israel's National Defense College and served as Military Secretary for the Defense Minister, is a senior fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security and at JINSA Strategic Center in Washington, D.C. General Amidror, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm sure you've had little sleep this week.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I'll begin with a description of the situation of today, and then I'm open to questions as much as I can speak. I know I'm not part of the decision making, but I think that I have enough information to give you the picture. We are now towards the end of the beginning. The first stage was to clean the area within Israel, settlements and headquarters and military points to which the Hamas succeeded to invade. We understand that that was a huge failure of the system, intelligence and operational plans, but we decided that we are not allocating any energy, time, or whatever is needed to investigate the past that will come an hour after the war. Yes, it's true that in the morning, around between midnight and 4 o'clock, there were discussions within the professionals about some signs that they saw in the intelligence, but they decided not to do something on the ground, and even not to report to the decision makers, not to the Minister of Defense and not to the Prime Minister. We understand it's a failure, but we decided all that will be investigated after the war and not during war, because we have a very challenging war we are now, and it will be even more challenging within few days when the decision to invade into Gaza with ground forces will be taken. I see very, 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 very little chance that it will not be taken. I think that formally the decision was not taken yet by the cabinet, but I think that practically everyone understands that if you want to achieve the goal of the cabinet to destroy Hamas, or to destroy and eliminate all the military capabilities of Hamas, that can be done only if we invade Gaza with ground forces. It is not going to be a nice or easy war. It will be an urban war, which is known to be very, very challenging in every part of the history of military operations. And here Hamas had time to prepare itself. You know, there is a whole network of underground tunnels under Gaza Strip, thousands of kilometers. We have to identify, we have to find the entrances and to find a way to neutralize the tunnels and the Hamas members inside. But the decision here is to do to Hamas what was done to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, meaning we will run after them and we will bring justice to them and we will kill them one by one, even if it will take 6 months or more. If we learn inside that we have to stay, I think that this time Hamas will not exist as an organization, as a military organization after the war. What will happen in Gaza? Good questions. Good question. We don't have good answers yet. But slowly we understand that we made a mistake by taking responsibility for the humanitarian needs in Gaza. It's not our problem. It's an enemy state. And as when Europe is giving munition to Ukraine to bomb Russian cities, no one is asking questions about the humanitarian issues or the humanitarian problems in the Russian cities. And when the Americans went to Fallujah after the 9/11, they didn't ask questions about the humanitarian needs in Fallujah and so on and so forth. And the best example, of course, is the Second World War, in which the whole free world fought against German Nazis, and no one asked about the humanitarian needs in the war in the enemy side. It's a war. It's against an enemy state called Hamastan, Gaza in other languages. And the organization which is controlling Gaza, by the way, the only elections which took part in Gaza, open, free elections, Hamas was elected by the people of Gaza. So in a way, indirectly, this is the regime which was elected by the people of Gaza. And now we are determined to destroy and smash this organization. And I don't want to go back to all the horrified and barbarian actions which had been taken by the organization. There are too many pictures in the media, most of them made by Hamas itself, so they cannot claim that it is a Photoshop of Israel. It was published by the members of the Hamas, and now we captured one order of the group which is supposed to go to Kibbutz Alumim, settlement near the border, and the order of Hamas is clear: to kill as many Israelis as possible. So they cannot claim that it was a mistake. It's not them, it's someone else. It's Hamas by plan. They succeeded to surprise us, and they used the fact that we had been surprised to butcher so many civilians, men and women, old people, young people, babies, children. It's unbelievable. Cruelty that, as Secretary Austin said, it's more than ISIS. So we will destroy them. And yes, there is a price. We are, by the way, we are evacuating our people, our settlement. We are evacuating now Sderot because we don't want civilians in the battlefield. And this is why we are pushing or asking the people in Gaza to move to the north, into the south, because we don't want that too many innocent will be killed. Hamas is stopping them, not let them go out. They are firing on their own people that try to evacuate the battleground. And I understand why. They need the human shield. And we want them out because we don't want them to be hurt or killed or wounded. And Hamas want them to be killed and wounded because this will help him in the PR fight against Israel. And they are ready to sacrifice many of their own people just to have more points in the international media. I don't know how it will be ended. We make everyone understand in the area that we are applied to, which is around Gaza City, that if they want to save their life, they have to go to other area, and we mark the area south of Gaza. No one will hurt them there, and it will be better for us because we don't want to kill civilians. It will be better for them. They will be saved. It's bad for Hamas because Hamas want us to kill as many civilians as possible. And this is the irony of the war, that Hamas is an organization which is acting from within his own populated civilian areas against whom? Civilian populated people on the other side of the border. This is the situation, and this is what we have to do. Whether I'm stopping for 1 minute because it's rainy here and I have to go inside. Okay. So it will take more than 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes.
I'll address the group for now. For those of you unfamiliar with the format of these webinars, because many of you have really parachuted in. to Israel the last few days. Rather than opening up the mics for everybody and making kind of a big mess, please write your questions for General Amidror in the chat box. And we'll continue asking the questions that were sent in advance or through WhatsApp that we've already received.
אתן לא צריכות לקום מפה, כי אני אשים את המצלמה ככה, אבל... רגע, שנייה, אני צריך רק...
Guys, we've put our speaker on mute for a minute until he repositions himself. And of course, if anybody on the line hears a siren and needs to take cover, we kindly ask you to do that. It's happened before in some of our calls, so please don't hesitate. So just 1 more minute of your patience, please. Thank you. Okay, glad to have you back with us, General.
Yes, I'm back and still dry.
That's very good. Glad to hear. Our first question is about the civilians captured themselves. We know that the IDF has sent troops in to try to identify the whereabouts of the hostages. In Israel, we've seen failed operations in the past when it was only a single soldier that was trying to be rescued by the IDF. So how can this possibly work given the vast number of captured civilians, including young children?
We nominated very prominent guy that is one of the best people that we have to coordinate the research and the intelligence gathering. And it very much depends how successful will we be. If we have an information about any specific place, no question that the IDF will do what is needed. But I agree, it is going to be very challenging, very problematic. It's not an easy job.
Sir, you've muted yourself. Go ahead. It's not an easy job. Okay, I will just ask the journalists who are not familiar with our format, please write your full names when you're entering the room. This is a press conference like any other press conference, and we want to know who's in the room. Going back to the humanitarian question that was raised in your opening, one journalist is asking why there's not more pressure by Israel or international communities to perhaps keep the Rafah cross. Not more international pressure on Egypt to keep the crossing open and to receive Gazans who are civilians trying to get out, particularly those who are willing to leave the northern strip.
With all due respect, it's not our job. It's the Egyptian and the humanitarian organization around the world. It's not our job to take care for the Palestinians from which Hamas was emerged. It's the international community and the Egyptians. It's not in our schedule to deal with the Rafah's passage. It's the Palestinians, the Egyptians, and the international community should deal with it.
Okay, you mentioned the very capable former general that has been appointed to lead any strategy behind the civilians captured. One journalist is saying, we heard that Ismail Haniyeh last week already rejected any prisoner swap format. Do you think that Israel will continue trying to push a deal?
No, Israel is not looking for negotiating with Hamas now. We don't in a situation to negotiate with Hamas. What we try to do is to find intelligence which allow us to do the job by ourselves. If we reach this situation, I'm not sure that we will have the intelligence. We are not going to negotiate in the present circumstances with Hamas. America didn't negotiate with the ISIS or Al-Qaeda. as well as the Brits and others, we are not going to negotiate now with Hamas.
Okay, you mentioned the end of the beginning. So obviously, a lot of journalists are asking about the different fronts that can open up. So, with your permission, we'll start with the other Palestinians. One is asking why you think that the Palestinians thus far in the West Bank have largely refrained from joining the war. Is this due to Israeli deterrence or otherwise?
I think it's a combination and a very interesting one. I think that many Palestinians in the West Bank really don't want to identify with the barbarian operation. I think that many Palestinians understand that that is crossing all the human red lines. Even ISIS was not so cruel, I mean, to kill children in their beds, and we found children, their hands tied behind their back and they're shot in their head. I mean, I don't want to go to the details. It's devastating. I think that many Palestinians in the West Bank that understand the difference between the situation they are living under occupation. They don't like it, but they see how we are keeping in the relations with the Palestinians in the West Bank the limitation of the military forces, and they understand that here their own people, they don't want to be identified with these barbarians. So I think this is one thing. The other one is, yes, we have many forces, and we try to eliminate any attempt to begin something. Whenever we are identify someone wants to make any terror operation, we are using immediately force to stop it, even to fire him. And I think that in the last few days, 10 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank. By the way, one Israeli was killed because the tension is such that everyone is very sensitive, and we killed one of our soldiers in a mistake, in friendly fire. But I think that the Palestinians in the West Bank understand that that is not the right way to present to the world the need of the Palestinians from their point of view for independence and so on and so forth. In a way, I think that this attack of Hamas postponed any chance for any Palestinian independence, because everyone in the world understands that this is a result of the fact that we unilaterally retreated from Gaza and we let the Palestinians to run Gaza, and the result is devastating. I mean, everyone understands. So in a way, it was a huge damage to the Palestinians and their dreams.
So thank you for that. Moving to our northern neighbors, obviously several people are asking the same thing. Can you comment on the risk of a second front opening on, either the Lebanese or Syrian borders? We saw a few attempts, to test the waters by Hezbollah over the past week, but these attacks didn't, show a full commitment to the war. And if this does turn into something bigger, one journalist is asking how likely would a ground operation ensue from these developments?
I don't know who was the group of terrorists which came today from Lebanon, and we succeeded to block and to kill. But the previous two were Palestinians. I mean, here Hezbollah is using Palestinians to show that he is part of the show, that he is contributing to the war against Israel. They are ready to sacrifice as many Palestinians as will be needed. For them, it's nothing, and every Palestinian can be wasted. I mean, and they play in a very delicate area to do something which will look like they are fulfilling their commitment to the Mukawama, to the resistance against Israel, but at the same time not to make it in a level which force Israel to retaliate in a way which might deteriorate the whole area. So I think that Nasrallah is playing here between the lines. He doesn't want to show that he is not there at all, but at the same time, he understands that there are some red lines that if he crossed, he might lead to a big operation. And because of the sensitivity in Israel, and because we are anyhow in a war, he understands. And I think that when he sees the results in Gaza, he's not happy to bring it to Beirut. But we, as you know, we brought huge part of our reserve forces. We have strong capability, unlike in the past. I don't remember, at least in the last 10 years, that we had so many soldiers near the border with Lebanon. The Air Force is movable in minutes if will be needed. Of course, it is not easy to deal with two fronts at the same time, but it is something that the IDF can do. It might make the war in Gaza longer than we expect now, but we have enough for both fronts, and we will be very aggressive, because when you are in a war, you are in a war, and we don't have all the limitations that we took in the past. And I think that that Nasrallah understands it, and of course the President Biden's strong words about the interference of Iran is also very, very important. And remember that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran met Nasrallah today in Beirut. So the Iranians will have to make here a decision if they want to be in confrontation with us and with the Americans, or they understand the situation. The decision here that we continue our efforts as today in Gaza, but we are preparing whatever is needed logistically and operationally to deal with any threat from Lebanon.
I just want to follow a little bit up on that in terms of, you said that Iran could go either way. What would be the red line that would impact their decision making to get more heavily involved in this conflict, whether it's sending in troops physically or so forth?
I don't see Iran sending troops to the Levant, to Lebanon, or to Syria. The Iranians are very cautious. They are ready to sacrifice as many Arabs as will be needed. If Hezbollah will lose 10,000 people, and it might be the result of the war, from the Iranians' point of view, it's okay. They are not Iranians. Shiites, they appreciate them very much, but the Iranians are very cautious. And they know that to bring the war to Tehran is not a wise way for the dictatorship in Iran. And they know that we have capabilities to reach Tehran. What they try to build is something smart, that to build around Israel a ring of fire based on Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and they had a plan to build an independent Iranian-controlled capabilities in Syria. The success is very, very limited, since we are bombing all these attempts. And what I have in mind is a very smart strategy. We will fight around Israel, very close to Israel, but Iran is far away. But I think that after the speech of President Biden and what we are preparing, it's very clear if they will interfere. If they interfere, the results will be shown in Tehran. And I think that they understand it. But anyhow, we understand that there is a coordination between Hezbollah and Iran. Iran is very much involved in the decision-making of Hezbollah. They have influence on Hamas, but they are not part of the decision-making. In Hezbollah, they are part of the decision-making process. And it's very well understood here that if Hezbollah decide to act, it is not coordination, it's more than coordination with the Iranians. They are part of the decision-making. So we are looking, we are learning, we try to understand what's going on in Lebanon. Up till now, we succeeded to stop all the attempt of Hezbollah to bring Palestinians in. I don't know what was the last operation that was run from Lebanon, it is Palestinian or not. But we understand that it is a very, very, very limited space in which someone might make a mistake and it will blow everything.
Right, very tense. We began with Gaza. We'll finish with Gaza because we do have one last question, and I want to finish after half an hour because I don't want to take too much of your time up. One journalist is asking, or saying rather, that the newly appointed minister Gideon Saar said today that Hamas needs to pay a heavy price, which may be territorial. Do you think that we'll get to a point where we may have to retake the strip if things get that bad, or is this not something that's inside the operational handbook?
There are many I know about few ideas how to make them paying territorially. One idea is to make a strip around it that no one can enter. One idea is to take part of it and to move the border, and so on and so forth. I don't know what will happen at the end. It very much depends on the mood of the cabinet. Now it's a cabinet, united cabinet, including the Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, two ex-chief of staffs with a lot of experience. There are few ideas. It's a more political declaration than a military target. It very much depends what happens in the war itself, how it will be ended. This idea circulated within the Israeli society and within the cabinet. What will happen at the end, I don't know. But it is more about the end game, or the game after the war, than the war itself.
All right, very clear. Thank you very much, Major General Reserves Yaakov Amidror, Senior Fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, and a Fellow at the Jinsa Strategic Center in Washington, D.C., and of course, former National Security Advisor of Israel. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you, and Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, Mvorach.